Welcome back to the lectures. This is Dr. Vishal Trivedi from Department of Biosciences and Bioengineering, IIT Guwahati. The purpose of these different types of papillae, as we have discussed already earlier, that they are actually providing the taste for different types of food. So, let us see how the tongue is sensing the food material. So, as you can see the structure of tongue. So, it is actually broader on the top side and it is thinner on the lower side, okay. And then this furrow is actually distributing the tongue into the two structure. This structure is called as pharyngeal structure, pharyngeal side, pharyngeal part, and this portion is called oral part. And most of the taste buds are present on the oral part, but the taste buds are present on the other part as well. So, we have the taste buds here, okay, and then we have taste buds distributed throughout the tongue, okay. So, different part of the tongue is used for sensing different types of taste. So, tip of the tongue is used for mostly for sensing the sweet, whereas there is a partial overlap between the region which is sensing for the salt, and that is present here on both the side, and that is for the salt. And then this major portion or the middle portion is mostly been sensing the sour taste, and then the top portion, this top portion is sensing the bitter taste. And most of these sensory machinery or most of the way in which the tongue senses these molecules are that all these sweet, salty, sour or bitter taste is coming because there are different types of molecule which are present in the food material, and these material actually interact with the taste buds, and as a result it causes a downstream signal, and that signal is perceived by the brain, and that actually give us the information about the taste. Apart from that, the tongue has many other functions. So, what are the functions the tongue has? Tongue has the function to hold the food and mix it along with the saliva to make the bolus. So, tongue is actually helping us to mix the food with saliva to make bolus. Tongue is helping, tongue is with the help of filiform papillae, tongue can actually hold the food onto the tongue can hold the food within the buccal cavities and actually bring the food in the different types of teeth, and that is how it actually helps in mastication. So, tongue actually can help in mastication. Number 3, tongue is the main function is it provides the sense of taste. Number 4, it actually also being used to clean the teeth. And so, apart from the tongue, so in the buccal cavity what we have tongue, and apart from that we also have a teeth. So, in a human we have two different, so teeth is a bony structure, Teeth is a hard structure which is present within the buccal cavities. Their main job is to crush the food to smaller pieces, and then these smaller pieces will get mixed with the saliva and get to form the bolus, and then this semi solid or semi liquidified food get internalized into the body through esophagus. So, let us see what kind of different types of teeth we have. So, as you know that we take food of different types, that is why we have a teeth of different types. So, the humans contains 4 different types of teeth. What are these teeth? One is called incisor, number 2 canines, number 3 premolar, and number 4 molar. Okay. So, incisor as the name suggests, incisors are the chisel like teeth, and we have 2 incisors present in every two incisors present in the half of the jaw. 2 incisors are present on the top and 2 incisors are present in the bottom of the jaw. Their main job is to cut the food into smaller pieces, and also they are actually help in chewing the food as well. So, incisors are 2 in number, in the half of the jaw, and their main job is to cut the food into the smaller pieces. Then we have in canines. Canines are the pointed teeth, and they are pointed on the one side, and the canines are having the longest root present at the bottom, and canines are very specific for tearing the meat or tearing the flesh. So, these are also called tearing teeth, and their main job is to help and they are mostly being present in the carnivorous, to help the carnivorous to tear the flesh into the smaller pieces, and then that smaller pieces can be used. So, these are also one, and they are also called as tearing teeth. Premolars and molars are the teeth present next to the canines, and there are two premolars and 3 premolars. Both of these premolars as well as the molars are multicuspid teeth. So, this means they have the multiple projections on the top portion, but the difference is that the premolar or the molar have a very wide platform on the top. So, as a result, these 2 teeth type are mostly being used to chop the food material or grind the tube material. So, these are also called as grinding teeth, and these premolar and molars are mostly being more developed in the herbivorous rather than the carnivorous. So, as you can see, since we have different types of teeth, and the proportion of these different teeth are very different in different types of animal species, and you can use these you can use the teeth number as well as their arrangement within the denture to characterize as well as to identify a particular animal. So, let us see what is this arrangement of teeth within the denture is called as teeth formula or the dental formula. So, what is the dental formula? So, for dental formula, you can see, so what you have to remember that the order in which these teeth are present. So, you can see that suppose this is your complete jaw. So, if you divide the complete jaw into the half, this portion you have to count from the middle and you have to count on this side, okay? And that you have to write. So, in this way you have to write first incisors, then you have to write canines. So, because the incisors are present here, then you have canines, then you have premolars, and then you have molars. Okay? So, exactly the same sequence in which you have to write. So, incisors, canines, premolars and molar. This is for the top jaw. So, this is the top jaw, this is the top portion and this is the bottom, and then you see that the arrangement in the lower jaw as well, and then you write exactly the same way. Okay. So, let us see the example. We will take the example of the humans. So, in the humans, as I discussed, we have how many incisors? We have 2 incisors on the top, we have 1 canine. So, we have 1 canine, then we have how many premolars? So, we have 0 premolars in the case of it is kid or infants, whereas we have 2 premolars in the adult, and then we have 3 molars, whereas in the case of kid we have 2 molars. So, this is the dental formula for a kid and this is the dental formula for a human adult individual. So, this is for the top jaw. For the lower jaw you have 2, 1, 0, 2, exactly the same for kid, and 2, 1, 2, 3, that is for the human. Now, we will say how we can calculate the number of teeth present in a single jaw. So, what you have to do is just add this number. So, what is the number? If you add this number, you will get 8 into 2. So, since this is the lower half, you can do and the number will come 16. Similarly, here and the number will come 16. So, this means the total number of teeth present in a human being is 32, whereas if you do the math in the case of kids it is 20. Now, you can see the dental formula for different types of organisms or the animals given in the slide, and you can see that it has been classified as per their feeding habits, and the idea of showing this to emphasize that you have different types of teeth and their usage is mainly being dependent on the type of food what you take. So, you can see we have 3 examples of herbivora, 2 examples of carnivora and 2 examples of omnivora. So, you can see that in the case of herbivora, we mostly you see that there is a complete absence of canines. So, as I said, canines are only required to tear the teeth, tear the meat. So, because the herbivora does not take the meat as their food, that is why this particular teeth is completely absent in these class of animals. Whereas, you see they have a more number of premolars and molar, because most of the herbivorous are taking the grass or the food, grass as a food material, and it has to be crushed and chewed using the premolars and molars. Similarly, you can see that in the case of carnivores, they very exclusively they contain the canines, and they have a lesser number of premolars and molars. Similarly, if you see the omnivora, so what is mean by omnivora is the species which can take the food, different types of food material, whether it is herbivora, whether they can take the grass or whether they can take the meat. Human is also an example of omnivora. I have given the 2 more examples, one is dog and the other one is hedgehog, and you can see that herbivora, since they are competent enough to take the nutrition from the different types of food material, they also contains they also contains canine as well as they also contains the premolars and molars. Now, so there is no difference in terms of the structure of every teeth. The only difference is that every teeth has a different shape on the top. So, what is the different shapes of these teeth? So, in the case of incisors, it is like this, and then they have a root which goes into the jawbone. So, this is the jawbone on which the teeth is attached. Whereas, in the case of canines, it is like pointed and then it is attached to your jawbone. Whereas, in the case of premolars, they have this kind of thing, and then they have, so their top surface is having the ridges, and it is very wide compared to the canine or the incisors. So, this is the incisor, this is the canine, this is the premolar, and then this is the molar. So, in the case of molar, they have multiples of these, okay, and then it goes and they have two ridges or the two roots which goes into the jawbone. In the case of one of the molars, which is actually the last molar in the human being, is developed after the age of 18, and that particular molar is known as the wisdom teeth. Or so this is the teeth which is actually considered to be the vestigial organ present in the human being. As I said, all different types of teeth are different in their upper morphology, but structurally they all are very identical. So, let us see what is how a typical teeth look like. A typical teeth has three different structures. One is crown, the other one is the middle portion is called as neck, and the lower portion is called as root. The root of a teeth is inserted into a bony socket made up, and it is also covered with the periodontal membrane, this bony socket, and it is also filled with the cement like structures. The middle portion is attached to a pulp, and that is called as gum. So, the middle portion is tightened by the gum, and then it comes the top portion, that is called as crown, and the crown contains a white colored hard material, and that is called as enamels. The major component which is present and making the teeth is called as dentine. So, dentine is the hard material present in the center of the teeth, and dentine is being secreted by the orthodontoblast, and within the main then the dentine is covered by a white and shiny material in the crown area, and that is called as enamel, and enamel is the hardest material present in the human body. Within the dentine, we have a central cavity, and that central cavity has the blood vessels, the nerve tissues, and the pulp, and that pulp is known as the central pulp or the teeth pulp. This teeth pulp is required to provide the nutrition for the different region of the teeth, and the lower portion or the lower portion of this pulp cavity is very narrow and it is almost closed, and as a result the humans normally have a permanent teeth, and that teeth never grows in time. So, this is all about the buccal cavities, and buccal cavity. So, what we have discussed in the buccal cavity about the teeth, we have also discussed about the tongue, and we are not going to discuss about the salivary glands, because that we will take up we will discuss about these glands in the later lecture. Now, buccal cavities actually opens into the oesophagus, but in between there is a small portion at which the buccal cavity also opens, and that portion is called as pharyngeal cavity. So, pharyngeal cavity is actually like a space and it is bigger than the buccal cavity, and it is a space which is actually required to control the passage of different types of material. So, let us see how the pharyngeal cavity look like. The pharyngeal cavity is top portion is actually communicating outside with the nose, and that is called as nasopharynx. The middle portion, which is communicating with the buccal cavity, is called as oropharynx, and the lower portion, which is communicating with the trachea or the breathing system, is called as laryngopharynx. So, actually the pharyngeal cavity has a job to communicate between these three cavities in such a way that there should be no mismatch or misregulation or miscontrol of different materials within these three cavities. So, as you can see, you have a hard palate which is continuing from the jawbone, and then it is tapering to the soft bone, soft palate, and the soft palate has a uvula, and that uvula is actually a area which controls the passage, which controls the air passage and the food passage. So, while we are taking the food, it is not the case that the food will go into the nose or the air tract. Okay. So, as soon as we take the food, it actually closes the nasopharyngeal area. Okay. On the other hand, you also have the epiglottis, which is actually a region which controls the passage of material between the oesopharynx and well as the laryngopharynx. And the purpose of the epiglottis is that it does not allow the food material to go into the trachea. So, once you take the food, what happens is, once you take the food, once you take a food, what happens is that you open the mouth like this. Okay. So, once you open the mouth, actually the soft palate goes in the upward direction. So, I will try to explain you how actually the flow of material within the pharyngeal cavity controls the pathway. Okay. So, what you have is actually like this. You have a mouth, and then it goes like this. Okay. And then you have on this side you have, so you can imagine that this is the palate. Okay. And the lower portion of this is palate. Okay. And this is connected to your mouth. So, as soon as you open your mouth like this portion goes up. Okay. And this uvula portion goes up, and it blocks the passage of air passage. Okay. And that happens for maybe a few seconds. As soon as you are chewing, so in between the chewing, when you open the lower jaw, actually it actually pushes the uvula on the top, and as a result this area get blocked. Okay. And as soon as this blocked, some portion of the food will go into the oesophagus and it will reach to the stomach, and then sooner after this will get opened, and then you can take the breath also. So, this actually in accordance and in a very tight controlled fashion, that so that you should not be able to deprived of air for longer period of time, but at the same time the food will also not go into the nasopharyngeal cavity, otherwise it will come out through the nose. So, after the food passes the pharyngeal cavity, it enters into the oesophagus. Oesophagus is nothing but a small tubing which actually connects the buccal cavity to the stomach, and food passes through oesophagus. There is no salivary, there is no digestive gland or any type of digestion happens in the oesophagus, except that it is just a small tubing which connects the buccal cavity to the stomach. So, now what we have discussed is, we have discussed about the mouth, we have discussed about the buccal cavity, and within the buccal cavity we have completed the discussion about the teeth, tongue and the saliva. And now we will discuss about the next organ, and that is the stomach. So, as you can see in the given slide, this is the structure of a stomach, and stomach has 4 different parts. The top portion, which is called as fundus, and this top portion is called fundus. The middle portion is called as the body of the stomach, and the lower portion is called as the pyloric portion, and the fourth portion, which is also called as which is actually called as cardiac region. So, stomach is a J-shaped organ, and it is because of it has a J shape, it has a smaller curvature on one side and the larger curvature on the other side. The top roof of the stomach is called as fundus, and this portion is actually being used for storing the gas which is being produced during the digestion process, or even otherwise also. The other portion, which is actually is the cardiac portion. This cardiac portion interact with the esophagus, and it actually controls the passage of food between the food material between the esophagus and the stomach. So, it actually allows the material to be coming from the esophagus to the stomach, but it does not allow the transport of material from the stomach to the esophagus. And in the cases where the cardiac sphincter does not work properly, it actually allows the leakage of the stomach material into the esophagus, and that actually causes different types of problems. One of such problem is heartburning. So, in heartburning, what happen is that the acid which is present in the stomach spill over to the esophagus, and then it actually damages the epithelial lining of the esophagus, and that actually causes lot of problems. All these heartburn or the acidity related issues we are going to discuss. So, there is another wall which is present on the lower side of the stomach, and that lower side of the stomach wall is called as pyloric sphincter. That pyloric sphincter is actually connects the stomach to the duodenum, and then this sphincter is required to control the passage of the food from the stomach to the duodenum, and it actually allows the food material to enter into the duodenum only when the digestion is complete in the stomach side. Now, if you cut the stomach, so this is the structures which are present on the external side of the stomach. Now, if you cut the stomach from the transversely, what you will see is that the stomach is having a lot of membranous folds present inside, and these membranous folds are actually called as ragi or the ragis, and the purpose of these ragi are to increase the surface area as well as increase the volume within the stomach. As you know that stomach is the first site where the food is being stored temporarily and digestion take place. So, as a result, the volume of stomach is very flexible. So, it can expand to a very large extent, and an average volume of an stomach is something around 1.5 liter. Now, we will go back to and see what are the different parts are present in the stomach lining. So, in the stomach lining we have majorly the 4 parts. One is serosa. Downstream to serosa we have muscular layer, then downstream to muscular layer we have submucosa, and downstream to submucosa we have the mucosal layer, and within the mucosal layer we have the we have the lumen where the stomach is storing the food material. So, in the serosa, which is made up of the visceral peritoneum or the subserosa, and we have the downstream to serosa, we have muscular layer. This muscular layer is actually contains the two different types of muscles, the longitudinal muscles as well as the cardiac muscles. And then below the muscular layer, we have the submucosa. That submucosal layer also is further divided into different regions, and that also contains the so submucosal layer is made up of the connective tissues, and below the submucosal layer we have the mucosal layer, and mucosal layer has three different layers. One is muscular layer, then the in between we have the connecting tissue, and the lowermost layer is called as epithelial layer or the mucosal layer. This epithelial layer or the mucosal layer is folds into the different times, and that actually causes the presence of ruggy in the inner lining, and the glands are mostly being present in the submucosal layer, and this epithelial layer is also being used, or the submucosal layer is also being used as a protective layer to protect the stomach from the stomach from the action of acid or the digestive enzymes. So, in many cases what happen is that this mucosal layer or the epithelial layer is being damaged very heavily, and that actually leads to a disease condition known as ulcer. All these disease conditions we are anyway going to discuss in subsequent classes. So, let us see what are the functions a stomach can perform. So, as we can said is what are the function of stomach. As we discussed in the past that stomach is actually a primary site for storing the food. So, stomach can, when we eat the food, it goes from the esophagus, and then eventually it stores into the stomach for very long time until the digestion is not complete. So, and this storage of the food material is different for the different types of food material. So, the primary function is that it actually stores the food material. This storage of food material is different for the different types of food material. For example, in the case of carbohydrate such as the sugar or any other sweet material, the storage is for 1 to 2 hours. In the case of protein, because protein is much more complicated compared to the carbohydrate, the storage material or storage timing is much longer, and in this case the storage timing is 2 to 3 hours. Whereas, in the case of fat, because fat are even much more complicated, and the fourth fat digestion is very difficult in the case of in the stomach. So, it actually gets stored even for the 3 to 6 hours, because fat is mostly being digested in the small intestine. Apart from this, what is the next function? The next function is obviously the stomach is helping in digestion of the food material. What are the other functions? Stomach is the primary site for absorption of carbohydrate and the sugar. So, it actually absorbs food material, and when I say food material means mostly the carbohydrate and drugs. So, when you take a drug or a pill by the mouth, it actually goes into the stomach, and then it directly goes, it get disintegrate into different components, and that different components then get absorbed into the stomach lining, through stomach lining, and then The third part is alcohol. So, the people who take the alcohol never goes beyond the stomach, and it actually goes into the stomach and then get absorbed through stomach lining. What is the fourth job or the fourth function? So, lot of vitamins and carbohydrates and other things are also being absorbed, but stomach is the primary site for absorption of vitamin B12. Okay. Number 5, stomach produces a molecule. Stomach produces motilin, okay, and motilin is a molecule which actually gives the signal for to our buccal cavity as well as to our mouth, that actually promotes the churning movement. So, it actually promotes the it actually secretes the motilin, and that motilin actually stimulates the passage of food material within the alimentary canal. Next to the stomach, we have the small intestine. Small intestine is the largest intestine present in the stomach, present in the alimentary canal, but it is called as a small intestine because the diameter of the small intestine is very thin, and small intestine has different components. What are different components? As you can see in the given slide, see small intestine has 3 different components. One is duodenum, the other one is jejunum, and the third and the last part is ileum. So, jejunum is the part which actually communicates or is connected to the stomach through a sphincter called as pyloric sphincter. And as we discussed in the past also, that pyloric sphincter actually controls the movement of molecules from the stomach to the duodenum. Duodenum is a C-shape or U-shape tubes, and it is actually not very long compared to the jejunum or the ileum, but the duodenum is having the connections for receiving the digestive enzymes from the liver. So, a common bile duct or a common duct which actually can take the digestive enzymes from the bile, digestive enzymes from the gallbladder or the digestive enzymes from the pancreas is opening into the duodenum, and this opening is called as ampulla of water. Below to that, there is another opening which is also directly used by the pancreas to deliver its content, and that duct is known as pancreatic duct. Duodenum is connected to the lower portion, and that is called jejunum, and jejunum is a longer in length compared to the duodenum, and the only difference between the jejunum and the duodenum is that duodenum contains more amount of villi, as well as its surface area inside the walls are much more folded to provide the better digestion of the food material and as well as the absorption. Duodenum is opening into the jejunum is opening into the ileum, and ileum is actually the longest part of the small intestine, and in the distal portion the muscles in the distal portion of the ileum, the muscular walls are thick. So, that actually controls the flow of material from the ileum to the large intestine, and this sphincter which actually controls the flow of material from the ileum to the large intestine is called as ileococal sphincter. This sphincter is very important because it actually allows the proper digestion as well as the absorption of food material. As you can know that there will be no absorption of food material from there will be no absorption of food material beyond the small intestine. After the small intestine, when it goes into the large intestine, the absorption of material which is going to take place is only for the water. So, body wants to ensure that when it happens, it actually should not be the case that some of the nutrients which are present in the food material goes waste, or the undigested food material goes into the large intestine. Now, if you see a cross section of the small intestine, you will see that most of the material what we have, the anatomical structures which are making the inner lining of the small intestine is almost identical to what we have discussed in the case of stomach. The only difference is that it is actually making much and much more folds, and that these folds are called as the plica circularis, and these plica circularis are further being divided into the smaller projections, and these smaller projections are known as villi. And the purpose of making such a complicated and folded membrane structure is that it wants to increase the surface area, so that the secretion of enzyme also should be efficient, and on the other hand the absorption through this villi is also going to be very efficient. So, let us see what is the function of small intestine. So, what are the functions of small intestine? Number 1. See, you know that the food material which is coming from the stomach into the small intestine. So, stomach actually secretes large quantity of acid, and that acid is actually is present in the stomach. So, that when the food material which is actually called as chyme in the stomach enter into the small intestine, it enters along with this acid. So, this acid which is not good for the small intestine, the digestion process which are happening in the small intestine has to be neutralized, and this is the first function which is the small intestine is doing. So, it is actually neutralizing the acidity of chyme. And how it is doing? It has the different types of glands known as the Brunner's glands. So, it contains the Brunner's gland, and the Brunner glands actually secretes the material or molecules which actually neutralizes the acid, because the environment in the small intestine is more neutral or the alkaline compared to the acid. So, the acid has to be neutralized. Number 2, digestion of food material, and anyway we are going to discuss about the digestion in detail. So, then you will know what are the materials are going to be digested in the stomach and what are the molecules are going to be digested exclusively in the small intestine. So, the molecule which are exclusively being digested are the fat in the small intestine, and then the third is absorption of food material. So, irrespective of the material which is coming from the stomach, the digested material, or the digestion which is happening within the small intestine, all these materials are being absorbed in the small intestine. Number 4. The number 4 function is that it actually produces different types of hormones, and the purpose of these hormones You know that in the purpose of these hormone is to control the different types of secretion as well as the absorption activities within the alimentary canal. You know that we have you need to secrete the hormone, you need to secrete different types of, you need to secrete the acids, you need to secrete different types of enzymes, and on the other hand you also have to secrete the molecules, so that there should be a coordination of digestion between the between the different parts of the alimentary canal. Means if the digestion is happening in the stomach, the pyloric sphincter has to be closed, so that the content which is present in the stomach should get adequate time to digest. If the pyloric sphincter is open, then the stomach, even if the stomach is going to release the acid or enzymes, they will not get the adequate enzyme, and most of these acids and most of these enzymes which are being secreted in the stomach are only active under the acidic conditions. So, as soon as they enter into the small intestine, they are not going to work. So, that is just the one example, that how the coordination of different parts of the alimentary canal is important for maintaining the control. So, it actually secretes hormones to control two parts. One is secretion and the other is the absorption. Secretion of acid, secretion of enzyme, and absorption of both, absorption of the nutrients which is present in the food material, or the absorption of water which is going to happen in the large intestine. So, there are a series of hormones which are examples, like for example, the secretine. So, there is a example of different types of hormones such as secretine, enterogesterone, pancreodymin, and the willikinin. So, these are just few examples that which actually being secreted from the small intestine, and that actually helps in coordinating the activities within the alimentary canal in terms of the secretion of different types of molecule as well as the absorption of different types of food material. Now, let us go back to the next material, anatomical structure, and the next anatomical structure. So, the small intestine, the ileum part is opening into the large intestine, and the large intestine is called as large because it is very wide in the diameter, and whereas the lengthwise the small intestine is the largest intestine present in the digestive system. So, in small intestine has three different components, as you can see in the given slide. If you see at the bottom, there is a pouch like structure which is called cecum, and then there is a width or wide tubes which is called as colon, and then colon is terminating into the sigmoidal colon, and then sigmoidal colon is entering into the rectum, and then rectum is terminating into a structure which is known as the anus. So, let us discuss the different these different components of the large intestine. So, the cecum, which is the first component, and as you can see here it is in the pink colored structure. The cecum is a pouch like structure where the ileum is opening, and we have discussed in the past also that the opening of ileum to the cecum is being tightly controlled, so that the content of the ileum is entering into the cecum only when the digestion as well as the absorption of the nutrient is complete. The joint between the ileum and the cecum is controlled by the ileocecal sphincter or the junction, and the now you can see a very small tubing which is closed on one end is also being attached to the cecum. This small closed tubing is known as vermiform appendix. The opening, the juncture between the cecum and the vermiform appendix is completely guided or the closed by a mucosal wall. This mucosal wall is actually not allowing the food or the other material entering into the vermiform appendix, because the vermiform appendix is a vestigial organ which is present in the human alimentary canal. So, vermiform appendix is fully developed in most of the herbivorous as well as herbivorous such as the cow, buffalo, and what is the purpose? The purpose of vermiform appendix is that it actually digests the cellulose and the cellulose containing material, and that actually is the prime food for the most of these herbivorous. Now, so once this mucosal membrane which actually removes, which actually disconnect the cecum from the vermiform appendix has any kind of defects, the food material enter into the vermiform appendix, and that actually causes a disease called the appendix. And in this particular disease, there is a severe pain in the stomach, and it actually happens because once the food is entering into the vermiform appendix, it actually causes the severe infection, and as a result it is not good for the body. So, this portion has to be removed surgically once you develop the disease conditions. Now, cecum is connected to a large tubing known as colon. The colon has 4 parts. Colon has one ascending colon, then you have the transverse colon, then you have descending colon, and then you have the sigmoidal colon. And all these colon parts have has only the primary function that they want to absorb the water. So, as you can see, when the food goes along with this, it actually absorbs the water from the different parts. Then the sigmoidal colon actually terminate and form the rectum, and rectum is rectum contains the 2 set of muscles. One is called transverse muscle, the other one is called longitudinal muscles, and then the rectum is tapering down and closing into a structure called the anus. The anus is actually a hole which is present on the human body, and this hole is being controlled is controlled by a sphincter, and that sphincter is controlled by the 2 different from the inside as well as from the outside, so that it actually is opened only when there is a desire to remove or desire to remove the desire to remove the undigested unwanted material from the body. Now, if you see the function of the large colon, there are different functions of the colon, and the major function of the colon is that it actually absorbs the water. Okay. So, let us see how it happens. So, the large intestine main function is the absorption of water. Okay. So, you have a cecum, then you have, you see this, okay, you have this called ascending colon. Cecum is attached to vermiform appendix, then this is connected to the transverse colon, connected to the descending colon has sigmoidal colon, and that enters into the rectum, and then you have this anus. Okay. So, as and here from this side, this is the ileum. Okay. So, from this side you are getting the food material that enter into the cecum, and then from cecum it entering into the ascending colon. So, in the ascending colon the food is mostly liquid, okay. But while it travels through the ascending colon, it actually absorbs lot of the water material, and as a result the food here is semi solid, or it contains more liquid, more solid than liquid. The transverse colon, by the time when while it is traveling in the distant colon, the food becomes the semi solid, and after that one enters into the distal colon, it becomes a solid. So, all the food water is being absorbed from the colon through these kind of after traveling through this, okay. And because the main purpose of the large intestine is to absorb the water, okay, and that is why the diameter of the large intestine is very wide. And why it is wide? Because so that the molecule actually, or the material actually travels very slowly within the colon, and when it travels very slowly, it actually allows the villi or the inner wall of the large intestine to absorb more and more water, because this water is essential for the body to run its life cycle, and at the end it becomes a very solid material, okay. And then it stores into the rectum, and then once we have a desire to eject out, we actually opens the anus by releasing the sphincters, and then it comes out from the body. Thank you.